Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
So I need the rights to share my screen.
Namra, can you please stop sharing?
Already have the rights.
Please try and answer. Yep, we can see your screen now.
Okay. So do you see the first slide, safe PI planning and remote PI planning?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So let's get started. Thank you everyone. Thank you Mohsin, Jishan, and our SPTs, Mr. Vikas and Mr. Adam, our sponsors, Pakistan Agile Education, Enterprise Agility, Agile Beams, Scale Agile, and everyone on the conference. I welcome all of you in this PI planning and then remote PI planning overview. So friends, PI planning is a 2 days event and I have here 25 minutes to cover. So before we start this session, a quick question for everybody. Get ready to type on the chat box. What is your favorite sports person? Whether is it local or international? You have 20 seconds. Type on the chat. Who is your favorite sports person?
Iqbal, we can't hear you. Are you speaking?
No, this is 20 seconds for everyone to answer the question on the chat. I see
Perfect.
Saklain Mustaq, Muhammad Ali, Badr Azam. Wow, great. So good. So time over time. It's a time box that we play. So let's get started. The real world. So now the question is, what is driving today's innovation? You have 30 seconds now. Can you type it on the chat box? One word. What is driving today's innovation? Okay, I see COVID-19, mindset, revenue, necessity. You have 12 seconds more. COVID-19, virtual world, very good. Adaptability, okay. Jishan mentioned. So time is over. So, a lot of answers. The one from Ajit says technology. Hassan says Internet of Things, scalability. The answer is software. If you remember recently, the CEO of Microsoft said, all companies are a software company. Why say that? So friends, you may have noticed that software-driven products and experiences are impacting every industry that we can think of it today. From retail giant Amazon to cable TV Netflix, the service industry like Uber or Airbnb, or car itself Tesla. So if you see the image on the screen, so it's a Tesla car and next to it is a software. So imagine a Tesla car is now run on software. So the short story is This digital transformation is become so essential for all businesses today, whether it is hardware, aerospace, Pakistani banking, any health industry, or retail, software itself. Digital transformation is no longer a matter of if, but a question of when and how. And good news for the companies is there are tools, processes, metrics, frameworks are available to help in developing a solution with a high quality and time to market. And guess what? We have it with us, and that's a scale agile, just called SAFE. So SAFE is one of them, designed to help business continuously and more efficiently deliver on a regular and predictable schedule. Today, SAFE is the world's leading framework for scaling agile across the enterprise. It says if SAFE had any secret sauce, this PI planning just might be it. So PI planning, program increment planning, our session is all about PI planning. It has two parts. PI planning, the what, so what is a PI planning, and how we can do remotely. Just like a sprint planning, the what and the how. So let's start slowly to understand what is the PI planning, the what part. So as mentioned, it's a 2 days PI planning event. It is a strategic event. It occurs every 8 to 12 weeks. When I say 8 to 12 weeks, it depends on our organization. My organization that I work, it's every 12 weeks. So basically quarterly. So we have 4 PI plannings in a year, every quarter, 1 PI planning. This PI planning involves many teams, whether it is local or some of them are distributed. Some teams in USA, some team in Pakistan, some team in India. So all these teams in ART, which is Agile Release Teams, are working together. This PI planning is facilitated by a release train engineer. So release train engineers say like Chief Scrum Master. Those of us who are not familiar with the ART is, think like it's a train with the different teams that are on board and are heading towards a common destination. In this case, common destination is business goal. Everybody works on business goal. So the key takeaway from this slide is PI planning is essential to SAFE, and all teams in the ART should participate. So the experts in the industry said, if you are not doing PA planning, you are not doing SAFE. Why we are doing the PI planning? Remember, Vikas said so many things about the whys. So why we need PI planning? So it is needed to identify our PI objectives, basically goals, what the requirement that we're going to work on it, what we're going to deliver. So it's needed to identify our PI objectives, a list of features that we are going to develop in 8 to 12 weeks. A business case that we are planning to address that should be in line with organization vision. So the key takeaway is why we are doing the PI planning is it helps us identify any dependencies. It collaborates between multiple teams across the ART, whether it is local or distributed, and it improves overall productivity. And why it is improve productivity? Since we are identifying dependencies and risks early and we address them. It also aligns teams In the art, the Agile release train, team of team with the business goal. Preparation. So we don't just do a PI planning, the 2 days event, just like, okay, let's do it. No, it doesn't happen. This is a very expensive event, strategic event, and it requires a lot of preparation. For example, before we do a PI planning, we need organization readiness. We need content readiness. We need a facility readiness. So for example, in organization readiness, organization has to strategically align themselves and maybe identify any team that need to be set up as part of the team. Are we adding any new team, any resources, stuff like that? And then in content readiness, the management prepares what to present in the PI planning event. And the development team, they also present the technical information or architecture information and so on. And facility readiness, it's a big room. It's a big room. Maybe you have 125 plus people. You have maybe 8 to 10 teams. So you need a facility or conference room which accommodate everyone comfortably. There are people who will be flying from other location in face-to-face PI planning, so they need a hotel and air booking in advance. There are some logistics that need to be get ready, such as a stationery or video conferencing tool or audio or projectors and so on. So these are the preparations that need before we start the PI planning well in advance. This is the PI planning process, very simple. So for the PI planning, in this 2 days PI planning, we need some inputs and we are expecting some output. So say for example, we start in Wednesday morning and we end up on Thursday evening. On Thursday evening, we stakeholders, program managers, leaders are expecting the output. And in the output, we will go through output in a little bit detail. That this output they were expecting is team will create the objectives, which is the goals, and the program board. So on the top, if you see, there are program objectives, and at the bottom in the right screen, it's a program board. So PI objective and program board. But before we start the PI planning, as mentioned, we need input. What are the inputs that we need? So first of all, before we start, we as a team identify our product vision. Vision is important. Without vision, we cannot achieve anything. So the product vision means here why we are building this product or that product, whether it could be health product, COVID-19 or anything. Why we are building it and what problems we as a team are trying to solve. Before we go into the PI planning, there's another most important thing is we identify a couple of features. Say for example, 10 features. It's just a number, it's just a random number. The vision answers why this feature and why not this feature. So that helps us to identify the top priority of features to work on. And then we must have a goal-oriented product roadmap. Product roadmap. What are the features that we will develop in upcoming PI? The next PI, PI 3, PI 4, or 21 or 22, whatever. So these are the information that we should have ready. We should have also ready the product backlog. Most of us are familiar with the single source of the truth, which contains all the work to be done on the product that includes functional requirement and non-functional requirement. So if you see that on the left side, the image, this is NFR, so non-functional requirement. So they are the attributes. So functional requirement is there, non-functional requirement is there, and so on. So in these 2 days, now we see the process in the middle. In this 2 days PI planning, The teams and leaders will help to make hundreds of decisions, questions, answer, identify the dependencies. It could be interdependencies. It could be external risks, many risks. Then the team breaks out those features into the stories. So we're splitting the word and make it into smaller chunk. And we add them to a program board. The program board is nothing but a simple way to spot the problems. And then after the PI process, we aggregate those output into the PI planning objective. So we will see those two things in a detail. So again, the input, the 2 days training, and the output. So this is the simple process that we can explain or we can understand. So what is the agenda looks like in 2 days? What we're going to do in this next 2 days? So this is our agenda. This is the standard 2 days PI planning agenda. As you can see, the very clear defined with each activity. We have a team breakout each day. So if you see the star on the first day one agenda at 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., that's our first team breakout agenda or activity. On second day, early morning, we have second one. This is very important event, and this is where the cream comes out. So we will take a look those things one by one. However, I would like to mention one more important thing other than this agenda is there is one more event that all Scrum Master work with the release train engineer, which is a chief Scrum Master, every hourly. So there is hourly Scrum of Scrum planning in these 2 days, which is checkpoint. So checkpoint is also a place where all the Scrum Master work out interdependencies, they discuss the impediments, which is a blocker, and ensure that the Agile release train is progressing towards the on right direction. So let's see the agenda day 1 and day 2. Do you guys see my screen? Can anyone confirm?
Yes, we are seeing the PI planning day 1.
Thank you. So all the input that we discussed, that assume that we have 125 people, we have 10 teams, all these big halls ready, and we are entering. All these teams are there. So assume that there are 10 teams, and we are in big hall, and our first day starts. So I mentioned who will facilitate the PI planning? The release train engineer or the chief Scrum Master. So he opens up, he provide any necessary introduction and he welcome everyone. And then next, the senior executive. So he or she provide the updates. This may discussion of current business performance, metrics, measures of our customer satisfaction, and so on. And then 9 to 10:30 time is for the product owner, the chief product owner. So the product owner would present the current vision, if there are any update in our vision that we identify, and so on. And what is customer is expecting, some of the leadership information that team needs to know. So based on that information, the team can apply the changes and so on. And then 10:30 to 11:30, that's the architecture, vision, and development team. So the architect will also update some of the information architecture perspective. 11:30 to 1 o'clock, the facilitate explain planning progress and the agenda. Now, time for the lunch. And the team goes for the lunch and come back. 1 o'clock, 1 to 4 o'clock, that's a team breakout. As mentioned, this is the most important events, and we have 2 team breakouts in this PI planning, 1 for each day. So this is important as mentioned. It's the longest and most critical session of the today's event. So what happened in this session? So basically all the team, in our case, we have 10 teams. So in this session, all these 10 teams break out into the separate meetings. For example, we have alpha team, beta team, delta team, zeta team. So each team draft their initial plan to achieve the goals for the next program. Team meet with product managers. They understand what the features, the requirement, the priorities. They identify users' story for the features. They estimate the work, so estimate the stories, and place them into the iteration or sprint, they both are the same, in sequence order until the capacity for each iteration. Team also estimate capacity. It is nothing but how much time that each member gonna work. They also discuss and identify the dependencies as well as the interdependencies with others as we discuss, and so on. So this is basically critical time for the teams to identify all the work that what they're going to do in next 8 to 12 weeks that during the PI planning, the PI time. And then once they finish it, we have a draft plan review, which is 4 o'clock. So what happened is each team present their draft plan. During this brainstorming session, the team breakout session, team identifies the dependencies, the risks, and so on. So they come up with a plan, they read it, they explain it, what are the challenges they have. Each team has a different dependencies. Test team may have different dependencies. Architecture team may have different dependencies. I'm talking about the member and so on. So at the end of the day, basically we create the inspect, adapt, and transparency, comparison prism, just mentioned by Jishan. So the key outcome here from the day one is the team sets the context for the PI planning and scope, prepare the draft plan, and at the end, 5 to 6 management review all these draft plans, the challenges, and they try to solve it or they discuss it. So between 5 to 6. So this is where your day one is over. So when team works, if you see 1 to 4, during the team breakout, this is the outcome of the team breakout. So the team work, they create the user stories, they put their user stories into the iteration, which is a sprint 1, 2, 3, 4. If you see the green color, they are the stories that they decompose it. They also identify the risk. If you see in the red color, they estimated, they calculate and estimated the capacity as well. So this is your team breakout look like. So each team has this thing. If you have a 10 team, we have 10. Then when the first day is over and we have some information now ready, we go and sleep well. Second day is, again, we start with the welcome. The RTE opens the agenda. And the first thing is planning adjustment, where management present whatever happened on the day one. So whatever the changes occurs, they explain to the team. And then we have now updates from the management. They might have resolved some of the dependencies and risks. Team has updates. Now teams go for the another team breakouts. Now this is a little easier than the first one because team has already worked on so much items. So here, the business owner assigns business value once the team identified that the plan, the draft plan. So the team develop or update their final plan. They define the risk and impediments and all the blockers. The business owner work with them and they assign the business value for the each requirement or the objectives. So this is what exactly happened here in this session. Then you have a final plan review and launch, and then you got to have a program risk. So teams read, if the teams have still many risk and impediments, they read it in front of all these team members or all the teams. It is important time for actual management and facilitator to identify the risk. Every program has a different risk, and there must be a discuss and address well. So here, each item is discussed until the group agrees that the item can be categorized in roaming, which is, we will discuss what the roaming is. Which basically, it's a resolved risk or own risk or accepted risk or mitigated risk. Then when we have roaming done by RTE, we get the confidence vote. So whatever we have agreed upon, whatever we have created the draft, this is time to get the vote that whether we're going to achieve these objectives or not. So once this risk has been addressed, then the team vote on how confident they are. Usually they start from scale 1 to 5. 1 is real lower, 3 is good, and 5 is the best. So RTE asks the confidence vote. Everybody has to raise their hand and come up with the number. If it is 3, we are good. If it is less than 3, then teams and management still try to understand, and they try and reach out how this team can get the confidence 3 and above. So that happens in front of everyone, and we create the great transparency. Then plan rework. If it is some of the items are still not resolved, then the team plan as needed, and then we move on. And the last step is retrospective. So I'll discuss a little bit in detail how the retrospective look like, what it is at the end of the PI planning. But when the planning objective that the team works during this 9 to 11, how it looks like. So I want to share the sample here. So basically it is nothing but the goal, the objective, that what the team XYZ is going to create. So here is an example of team A. The PI objective for the team is proof of concept with mock sounds, and the business owner or the product owner is assigned the business value 10. So 10 is high. So this is how it looks like. So this is just a sample. And then each team create this type of PI program objectives, and then it makes a program objective together. So the team level, we have PI objectives, and then program level, we have PI objectives. And so this is our first outcome that we were expecting in the PI planning process, if you remember. And the second one is at the end of the 2 days or second days, this is how the program board looks like. So all these features are identified. If you see on the left lane, these are the team name, and these are the sprint that what they're going to do. This blue boxes are the features, and the red boxes are the risk for the each team. And then if you see, the dependencies are well identified, who is going to depend on what. So this is in front of everybody. This is the most important thing for the entire PI or entire art, should say art. So this is the outcome that we were expecting, if you remember. And this is what we will discuss in the very first PI planning process, if you see here. So we had an input, we work in 2 days, and we have output, the program objectives and the program board. Now there are a couple of items that we discussed that we're going to take those things in a little detail. So this is also an important thing, that program has a risk. Each and every program has a risk. And during the PI planning, team would identify any risk or impediments that could impact the PI objective. Then the risk must be addressed with honesty and transparency. And then it should be categorized in roaming method. So we discussed that if this is the risk, is it resolved, or it is owned by some team or some owner, or it is accepted that this is a risk, or it is going to be mitigated. So this is our roaming method that we use for the PI planning. And as mentioned, that at the end of the PI planning, very last, this is RTE runs the retrospective. And RTE carries out an exercise which allows the Agile release team, to identify what went well during those 2 days, what didn't go well, and what can be done better, or what are the action items that one has to take to work on. So this exercise basically helped the entire art to prepare for the next PI and plan for it. So the key takeaway here is, if we don't collect the feedback right now at the end of the PI, we will forget many good things, and that's not good. Remember, PI planning is not cheaper, it's expensive, the face-to-face I'm talking about. And this is how we end our PI planning today's session, and we achieve a couple of things as mentioned as an outcome. But what happened after PI planning? Those 2 days are over. What happened? What do we do after that? So a couple of takeaway here is, when it is done, each team PI objectives are well set. These objectives are then moved into the individual team program board. The program board is often used during the most of the time Scrum to track what are the changes, and the Agile release team proceed to executive PI. So the next session is our sprint planning, and then so on. So this is all about PI planning face-to-face. Now, as mentioned earlier, so this session of the presentation is in 2 parts. What the PI planning is. So we already know now the what. Now, because of the current situation and COVID-19, all these programs and companies are going towards remote PI planning. So how we can do a remote planning? So I'm going to discuss real quick the how part here. So we know the big room, the face-to-face, but the COVID-19, it is forcing organization to adapt the remote PI planning, working faster than ever before. If we plan well ahead, we can design an effective, fun, and efficient PI planning event. But this time is going to be remotely, when all the participants will actually dial in and using the online tool. Just like right now, we are using Zoom for the sharing and working remotely. So that's what we're going to do it. So how we can do it, let's discuss. Are you able to see my screen? Can somebody
Yes, we can.
please? Okay, so in order to make remote PI planning successful, there are a few things need to be considered, and it should be well advanced. We need to start thinking how we're going to coordination, how we're going to collaboration, and how we're going to communication. In our situation, we have 10 teams and we have 125 people. We have executives, we have scrum masters, we have product owner. Who is going to facilitate? For example, right now, today, one person is facilitating, but there are other co-facilitators as well that they are monitoring right now as we're speaking. So all those logistics we need to understand. We need to plan those things in advance. So a couple of tips that each and every organization are using in advance for the remote PI planning. The key takeaway here is plan in advance, communicate with all your teams about the dates and agendas and objectives and features and vision and team members and resources and so on. Since we are all remote and we are not sitting next to each other, it might take some extra time to coordinate. So it is okay. We need to check whether it is okay to extend timeline. We also need to plan the logistics tools. We need to test our audios all the time. We have some issues because of the bandwidth or so on. We need to make sure that our visual settings are there. Are we using the right tools for that? These are the items that we need to consider. It could be a little bit more based on our situation. So let's see what are the popular tools that we have. And we need to select the right tool. We need a collaboration tool. We need an online video meeting tool. For example, Zoom that we are using. We need PI program board. We need Agile life cycle management tool. So in my case, we use Jira, we use Zoom, we use Big Picture as a digital program, a PI planning board. And then definitely we use other tools like Confluence for the retrospective and so on. So we'll discuss a little bit real quick. But when it comes to PI, virtual PI planning or remote PI planning, it is the most important thing that all this program discuss about program board. This is the most important thing that people discuss. And we have a lot of options. For example, if you are using your Jira fan, they have a big picture tool. There are PI planning app. One of them is a target process and so on. So depend on our needs, we can select the tools. We can use our PI planning tools and collaboration tools and so on. So in our situation, say for example, we are right now in PI planning, the remote PI planning. How are we going to do it? So as a RTE, the release train engineer is going to facilitate this remote PI planning, same as face-to-face. The release train engineer might have few co-hosts. What they're going to do is they're going to monitor. For example, as I mentioned, that there are few co-hosts that they are monitoring. We have about like 150 people in this chat right now in this session. So we have some of the co-hosts as well. As a RTE, you are opening the meeting using the Zoom. For example, we are using use and assume that 125 as an example. So right now, if you can understand, pretend that I'm your RTE and you are our team, and I'm just doing all this in PI. So as a facilitator, we can do a chat. We can monitor the chat. We can broadcast messages to everyone. And then we can allow our business owner or product owner or anybody who wants to share, just like Mohsin and other team members have allowed me to share this thing. So it's just easy. All we need to do is how these tools are being used. If you see the highlighted, the rectangular breakout rooms, just remember it, that there is another important feature that Zoom allows. So before we start any meetings, we also make sure that our settings are there, our videos are there, we test our speaker or mic or how we can do the polling and voting and stuff like that. Excuse me. Then this is the remote PI planning session, day 1. Very similar, same as we discussed in the face-to-face. Here, the team breakouts is done by the breakout room options. We can create many teams as we need it, which I'm going to show you real quick in a minute. When the RTE wants to create the multiple virtual teams, RTE can create those, depends on how many multiple virtual rooms that we need and who will go into the teams. Then we also use the advanced meeting feature, such as feedback that you've been doing it. Now you are already familiar with it. We also use the question and answers, and we also use the voting method. So for example, if you would like to get all those opinion, you may have some silent audience, and you may have some voice dominator in the virtual meeting. So how you can mute everyone and how you can use different method. For example, you get the feedback and use those non-verbal feedback options or features. You use the poll and so on. This is the program board that I was discussing, a Jira program board, the digital one, the virtual one. And this is exactly looks like the program board, the actual program board that we discussed. But this is digital one. And if you see, the features are there, the stories are there, and with the red string, the dependencies are also identified. So here, the important thing to take away is the team break out their features into stories. And if you observe closely, it shows independencies as well. I think I don't have much time to go into the detail here. So my time is coming up. So this is the last part, PI planning virtual day 2. A similar thing happened in team breakout. If you see the red star, 9 to 11 a.m. And then again, the RT is going to create the breakouts. And at the end of the day, we discuss about the retrospective. So there are other tools. For here, one example is Ideal Board. We can do online tools and everything using the virtual tools. And that's pretty much. I hope you have enjoyed this session. And thank you for your time and stay safe. Thank you, Mohsin.
Thank you so much.